too good. I mean, the only guy that I've really seen manage that, well, two coaches that I've seen manage it, and they're both on the SEC Mount Rushmore. Spurrier was able to do it with two quarterbacks, and of course Saban did a remarkable job with Hurts and Tua. Maybe if Kalen DeBoer had maybe if Sarkisian, had more experience or a deeper relationship with these guys, maybe it'd be easier for him. Or maybe on the other hand, that's what complicates it. Maybe he feels that pressure to be loyal to yours when clearly the guy didn't give them the best chance to win. I mean, it's tricky, right? I mean, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. At the end of the day, you got to win. All those things going on in Texas against a Clemson team that, who knows? What did God tell us? He said that they're what Dabo said to us, that they're an NIL program built in God's name, image, and likeness, right?
Yes.
And then he said that they had he said, what do you mean we don't have any transfers? Oh, all teams transfers. They transferred right out of high school to Clemson. I kind of like that Cinderella story. I kind of want to see the former Alabama receiver and assistant coach. I want to see Clemson do well in the playoffs. I mean, Alabama's not in the playoff, but Dabo is, and doesn't he represent the state?
Yeah.
What you say? Wait a minute. This guy's got he was part of a national championship team, right?
Well, we remember.
Recruited some pretty good. You recruited some pretty good players that helped Alabama win an SEC championship. What is it?
Yeah, I also remember him selling mall space.
Yeah.
Do you remember him beating Nick Saban a couple times? And I don't know many other coaches that beat Nick Saban twice in national championships.
No, we've expunged that from the record, Mike. We don't talk about the losses. We just talk about the W's.
I'm just saying Clemson's got
Nick Saban never lost a game.
Pretty good.
Well, at least not to Georgia.
That's the way we remember it.
No. Oh, well, yeah, it's in the books. But Clemson's got a pretty good thing going on. I want to see if Clemson can pull it together. I mean, now think about this. I just want to point this out. You guys just went over 15 minutes of how terrible and all the problems and all the issues with transfers, right? That conversation just happened, didn't it?
Yes.
And so now I'm bringing up a guy that's not polluting those waters of transfers and NIL and free agent. I'm bringing up a guy that's trying to do the old-fashioned way, and an Alabama guy at that. And you want to throw water on that? Is this kind of like booing Tim Tebow in the end zone when he kneels? I mean, come on, guys. Don't be hypocritical now.
All right, Mike.
Little old bit of Clemson. Got to ride into Austin on that donkey.
Well, Mike, we're obviously got a weird schedule next week because it's the holidays. So we wish you and your family the happiest of holidays and enjoy the weekend of watching football instead of being somewhere covering it. And we will talk to you in the next couple weeks.
Merry Christmas, Mike.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thanks. That's Mike Griffith joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline.
It's never a dull moment, right?
Yeah.
The Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
All right, Mike Rodak is going to join us here at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk a little transfer portal news, what's going on with Mbakwe and the rest of the Alabama players that have entered the portal, what's going on with Ryan Williams, if anything. A lot of people want to know if he's happy. That's kind of a big name.
Now's a chance to give him the world.
Yeah, so we'll talk to Mike Rodak at the bottom of the hour, a full loaded-up show. We're here at Social Taco. Doors open at 11. We're here until 2. This is Jocks 94.5. It is 10:27. Jocks 94.5 coming up in just a couple of minutes. Mike Rodak from Bama 247. I know he's got the very latest what's going on with the transfer portal. That's all he does with his life. He just spends every waking moment in the transfer portal. So we will talk to Mike in just a couple of minutes, and I'm sure he's got a bombshell or two that he will share with us of what's going on with the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Well, do you consider yourself a bourbon connoisseur? Because at Twin Peaks, they're proud to offer an exclusive and extensive collection of some incredibly rare bourbons, whiskeys, and tequilas. Plus, check out their barrel selects that are handpicked by their team and bottled just for you. The supply is limited, so check out your favorite location to see what they're pouring. That is our friends in Twin Peaks and Hoover. They also sponsor our daily Twitter poll question. Which is the most annoying aspect of the transfer portal, do you think? Is it the goodbye post on social media, leaving your college football playoff team, portal agents, or just all of it sucks? And right now winning with over 300 votes is all of it sucks with 82%.
So 82% of the audience think it just sucks.
Yes.
Okay.
Only 11% say goodbye post on social media. 4% say the agents, and only 3% say leaving your team.
Okay. Got it. All right. There you go. So you can go vote right now. But, yeah, 82% of you right now believe just the whole thing sucks. There's not one aspect of it that's worth a darn. Zero.
You get to meet new players every year. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're live at Social Taco in the Taco Terrace. Mike Rodak from Bama 247. He is going to join us here on the program. He is an individual that covered NFL teams, multiple NFL teams. Mm-hmm. And I got a feeling he's going to tell us that what he's doing right now covering Alabama and the transfer portal reminds him a lot of NFL free agency. Yes. Except there's guardrails in the NFL, and there's no guardrails in the NCAA.
You think he can also tell us if he thinks that Bill Belichick will be successful at the college level?
I'm sure Mike has an opinion or two on that. He'll join us next here on site. This is Jocks 94.5's Three-Man Front live at Social Taco.
We continue here on this Tuesday live from Social Taco in Homewood. Doors open 27 minutes from right now. The mayor of our get-togethers, Don, he is here already adorned in his ugly Christmas sweater that he's telling me that he got from the thrift store, but it looks wonderful. Anyways, Mike Rodak's going to be joining us momentarily. I always want to tell you about our friends at Mystic Beverage. It is infused sparkling water made in Blount County, Alabama, from the High Hills Delta 9, Nirvanic Delta 8, or the Southern Berry. You can get a variety of different flavors, but my favorite is the Lift. It helps you focus. It's got that green coffee bean extract. It can pick you up. Late in the day, maybe you need that pick-me-up, or you just got a lot going on, and we know about that during the holiday season. It's mysticbeverage.com. You can find them in your local Piggly Wiggly. If for some reason they don't have them, you need to ask for them. Once again, mysticbeverage.com, and go and get you some today.
Joining us now on site here at Social Taco, Mike Rodak joins us every week here on this program from Bama 247. And Mike, we're just joking around about the transfer portal, but a serious question for Alabama fans. Last night it appeared that Mbakwe, the 5-star outstanding DB freshman from Clay Chalkwell High School, who had limited time at the university this football season, but very close friends with Ryan Williams, to do a podcast together. And a lot of people were wondering what's going on with him. He goes on social media, says, hey, it's a business decision. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. And then all of a sudden, before I went to bed last night, I started getting some texts from people in Tuscaloosa telling me, hold on, this thing might not be over. He might be staying in Tuscaloosa. What's the very latest that you could tell us about what you're hearing?
Right, it's kind of boomerang. I mean, it's been ongoing for a couple days. I mean, even before it really became public, if you will, yesterday, it's something that was kind of brewing for a few days. And, that's the truth with a lot of players. Like Emmanuel Henderson just went into the portal yesterday, but that was something over the course of 3, 4, 5 days you're hearing, there's negotiations and there's money involved, obviously, because that's what it is now. You have agents, you have players, you have, the money people for the university, NIL people, and it's all trying to figure out what's your offer and what else is out there that other schools are offering you. So obviously this is not a different situation. I think Mbakwe's made that clear that it's a business decision, that I think even in his statement he said he's trying to do what's best for his family. So clearly money is a factor here, and going back and forth, like you said, last night, some signs that maybe he could come back. There was that cryptic Ryan Williams Instagram story, whatever it was.
Was it bingo? Wasn't that the word he used?
Right.
Bingo?
It was bingo, we got action, which everybody's trying to read left, right, and, upside down, trying to figure out what he means exactly. And then this morning you have a copycat
staffer, right?
Right, Santana McKnight, who tweeted the exact same thing. Bingo, we got action, with instead of a elephant emoji, it's a shark emoji for Ole Miss. So it's that time of the year.
Yeah.
If you want to read into that and say that Ole Miss is
Maybe
10 more times in the next hour, like there's no anything to stop it. So it's
all right,
just
so
what it is.
Okay, so as of this moment, we have not seen his official paperwork in the portal, correct?
I do not believe he is officially entered, not from my seen right now.
Okay.
So does that
now once you go in, you can still come
Yeah, you
out.
come out.
Right, yeah.
But if you at that point in time, then you are free to go sign a letter of intent, correct?
Right.
At whatever school.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
until that happens, then if you're an Alabama fan, then you could.
Right. Yeah. There's technicalities there, and technically Ole Miss shouldn't be in on him unless he's actually in on the portal. But to prove tampering, I mean, you have to prove actual contact with the player, and it's never going to happen. So
If you ain't tampering, Mike, these days, you ain't trying.
that's right. It's true.
It is true. I was telling Pat that we thought when we first got NIL that eventually, after a couple of cycles, people would realize, and I mean the people that are writing the checks, hey, you know what? It probably wasn't worth it to go and pay 1 point whatever for this running back or this DB. But instead of leveling off, instead of having a market correction, we've continued to get these inflated numbers. And the numbers that we're hearing from folks, it's just stupid. And you're thinking to yourself, really him? But if that's what the market is allowing, then that's what's going to be paid.
Available this year, too, because you're introducing revenue sharing next year.
Right.
So as much as $20 million per school. In reality, for football, it's probably closer to 15 or 16 per school. But that's kind of new money available that is from the school, can be paid directly, not technically until I think July 1st, given the House settlement, but that's added on top of whatever's already been in the system NIL-wise through the collective. So, there's like NIL deals. We're going to pay you through the collective right now, and then once revenue sharing goes into place, we're paying you directly starting in the fall. So there's a bigger pool of money available. But in theory, that should help level the playing field for somebody like Alabama that hasn't historically been one of the top NIL schools. If you can tap into your revenue, which is substantial for Alabama, then that should be helping them. But I don't get the sense that they're in the lead money-wise on a lot of these guys. And if there is a guy that's just out there simply for the best offer, I don't think Alabama's winning those battles right now. But, you do have to ask the question of, is that always the best thing for Alabama, too, to just give the guy whatever he wants? Like you said, there's been schools that have paid big money. Florida State was probably, the poster child this past season. And culture-wise, do you want that in your locker room? Like, there is credence to being a little bit more conservative, and I do think there's an element of that happening for Alabama right now.
Mike Rodak joins where it currently sits. Is there a name or two? At least
Mbakwe is one, but even why it happened. Portal is you have the job. They're going to start next year. All
that's assuming that
back for a senior year. Not official yet. And then it's the guys who aren't in those seats or he does fit that mold early in the season. By the end of the season, Jackson and Deshaun, a guy who's a corner next year, for him to go into the portal. Kendrick Law, Emmanuel, guys who are down to their last. Even if it's not, if you get to that point in your career, gotten to that point, then there's a certain amount of anxiety that I think comes into play. Like, am I going to make it? What do I have to do next year? Am I going to start? I think that was the case for Law and Prentice and Henderson, looking at what was ahead of them, and Ryan Williams and Bernard. Damon Payne probably looking at what was ahead of him. If Tim Keenan comes back, if James Smith is starting, am I going to play? If I don't play next year, am I going to make the NFL? If I don't make the NFL, what's going to happen to me? Am I not going to make the money I thought I was going to make when I was coming out of high school? So those guys, I get it. And there's been players who have left Alabama, who have gone to other schools, who have played more. Ja'Cory Brooks just did it with Louisville, had 1,000 yards in receiving this year. Probably going to get drafted to the NFL. I don't know if he would have played as much at Alabama. Good move for him. And it's usually about the NFL, so it's about the money. In the short term, yes, with NIL, but also in the long term with guys thinking if they make it to the NFL, they've made it. And their family is taken care of for generations.
Yeah, and I had an Alabama fan that a good friend of mine, he texted me yesterday morning, and this was even before I think the Mbakwe news had come out, and he said, and I look at Alabama and I look at other schools like Alabama that are on that level, it doesn't seem like those bigger names from those other schools are entering the portal and going other places at the extent that they are in Tuscaloosa. Then he followed up with, do you think this is something deeper? Do you think it's just money-driven, or do you think that this is maybe a cultural issue there in Tuscaloosa?
I think there's less sway when you have a newer coach like Kalen DeBoer, as opposed to guys saying, I want to stay and play for Nick Saban, that there's a proven track record there of getting guys to the NFL. There's probably less motivation for guys to stay and play for DeBoer. I don't know if that's a culture problem per se. I think it's just kind of the reality of where the program's at. Every situation's a little bit different. It's hard to kind of, put a whole blanket over it, but they've lost, I think I just counted last night, it's 12 five-star kids since the portal was created in 2018 that they've lost. And, there's all sorts of different reasons why. I mean, there's guys like Antonio Alfano and Iyabi Anoma who had off-field issues. There's guys who just never panned out, like Tommy Brockemeyer. And then there's guys who legitimately, I think will be good players. Obviously, Caleb Downs, but Julian Sayin, Ja'Cory Brooks turned into a good player at Louisville. It's hard to kind of put everything in one bucket, but it's a problem to some extent. I think if you're still able to recruit at a really high level, which they're going to have a top 5 recruiting class, you can probably afford some attrition and still have a roster that can win games, even if you lose some guys.
It's interesting because Kirby Hokut, who is the athletics director at Texas Tech, he is you were just referring to the monies that's available. I think he's like one of the first ADs to literally come out and kind of give a breakdown per sport that starting on July 1st that they're going to be able to obviously disseminate the funds. And he says the $20.5 million revenue sharing, he's going to have $15.1 million for football. So 74% of his budget is going to go to football, and then he's going to spend $3.6 million there for basketball. So it kind of goes by what you were talking about. Most schools are going to have in that $15 to $16 million range.
Right, and that's probably even less than what I would have first expected when this all came about. I would have expected closer to 85, 90% going to football. And Texas Tech has a pretty good basketball program. $3.6 million of that 20 is a healthy amount. You can get some players with that money, and then it comes down to Title IX. I mean, you probably have to, it's almost $500,000 going to women's basketball. There has to be some Title IX consideration there. There's, I'm sure, going to be a lawsuit at some point, but somebody arguing that it should be half and half of that 20.
Oh yeah, that's coming.
I don't know if that will hold up, legally, because Title IX guarantees equal opportunity, not necessarily equal pay. But there's going to be a challenge of some sort. Yeah, it seems right. About 16 million to football, and that's new money, if you will, in the system. I think the question then becomes how much of that NAL money is still there in the future. In theory, the House settlement is supposed to have a clearinghouse with the NCAA. Any deal over $600 has to be vetted. It has to be an actual bargaining deal. We'll see how that actually plays out in reality. And, there's a question of if you're a booster and you've been giving money to NIL and you see some of these guys leave and you get frustrated, now you can say, look, the school's going to pay the guy the money. They have the money to do it. They can legally do it. Now, why should I continue to give my contribution? It's like the NFL. There's nobody donating to the Kansas City Chiefs to give Patrick Mahomes his money. People just kind of understand that the NFL has a lot of money from their TV deals, from their ticket revenue. People pay exorbitant amounts of money to go to those games. They don't have to donate on top of that. And I wonder if college football eventually is going to move towards donors just saying, you guys can handle it yourselves.
You guys remember the entire premise of name, image, and likeness and what it was intended for? This stopped me in my tracks the other day. I'm watching TV, and the Arizona State running back is promoting a truck in a commercial. And I thought, you know what? That might be one of the only NIL-type commercials I've seen all football season.
Oh, yeah. The percentage of players who have actual marketing value is very low. And I think we knew that all along, that there's even on a team like Alabama, I mean, how many players are instantly recognizable by even hardcore fans? There's not too many to put on a billboard or in an advertisement. There's probably 4 or 5 players on this team. So, the actual NIL value of most players is close to zero. But, the practical NIL is just, the donors giving, backdoor deals essentially. So, how much of that stuff can still exist with this new House settlement, with the NCAA clearinghouse? We're just going to have to see. I'm sure people will pretty quickly try to work around it.
That is Mike Rodak from Bama 247. He will continue to join us here for a few more minutes here on Three Man Front. We're live at Social Taco. Doors will open up at 11. Come by and see us. We'll be here until 2 on the Taco Terrace. This is Jocks 94.5 on this beautiful Tuesday on Jocks 94.5. It is 10:51, Jocks 94.5, talking a little bit about the transfer portal, what's going on in around college football. Mike Rodak from Bama 247 joins us here on Three-Man Front for another segment or so. All right, so let's talk about Jalen Milroe. So he comes out, he officially says, I'm playing in the bowl game. Now, the general feeling is, the people I talk to, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, is that once the bowl game is over, he will make it official that he is moving on to the NFL. Do you anticipate that happening that way? Or is there a flirtation there maybe of him playing another year of college football, maybe not in Tuscaloosa?
It would be a pretty massive upset if he played another year at this point. And Alex Scarborough, for our website, reported yesterday, too, that every indication at this point is that he's going to go into the draft, and it makes sense. I think we know what he is at this point. I don't know if playing another year of college football changes anything. He kind of is what he is. Unless he turns into precision pocket passer next year, I don't know what more he can show. Like, we know he can run. We know he's super athletic. We know that there's some questions about, accuracy sometimes and decision-making in the pocket. I think an NFL team will take a risk on him. I think it's going to be probably in the second or third round.
Really?
I don't think he'll be a first-round pick. But
that's kind of hard to believe, and I don't want to typecast him, but just thinking about really athletic quarterbacks that we've seen in the past. I mean, you think about Anthony Richardson, we knew that, and maybe to Jalen Milroe's detriment, we've seen so much of him, whereas Anthony Richardson, I think a lot of NFL teams said, well, we really don't know what we have in this kid. We only have a limited sample size, and maybe that's going to hurt Milroe if he slips. Yeah,
I agree. I think it was a lot of projection with Richardson, and I think him kind of as I don't want to say canary in the coal mine, but he was kind of the guy that everybody has compared him to and did not work out or has not worked out for the Colts, and that could hurt Milroe in terms of how a second team coming in behind him, kind of approaches that. So, everything I've heard is that he's more second and third range. Does that rule out a team maybe sneaking back into the first round and saying we're going to take a roll of a dice on you late? Maybe that'll happen, but don't really anticipate him being one of those top 10, top 15 guys that I think you really need to feel good about the pick. But, in terms of the bowl game, I'm still interested to see how much he plays. I think I just put out their roster today, too, of where it stands. They're at 65 guys total, and they're down to 4 healthy receivers right now with the guys that they've lost.
And if you polled Alabama fans, would they say they'd rather see Ty Simpson play that entire game? I think they would. They
would. And even then, I think the question would be how much do they throw the ball with Ty Simpson? Because you have Ryan Williams, you have Jeremy Bernard, you have Rico Scott, the freshman, you have Jaron Hamilton, the redshirt freshman. That's it. You have 4 guys who left. You have 4 guys who are hurt at receiver. And even then, does it make sense to play Ryan Williams a lot at all in this game? He tears an ACL in this game. He's probably out for the 2025 season. And you just really put yourself in a bad spot for next year. For what? To win against Michigan that's not even playing any of their best players, or those guys aren't playing themselves. Like, I don't know.
This bowl game might be one that Matt Wyatt, when he joined us, is like 2 drunk guys fighting.
Yeah.
It's kind of
this is good. As Alabama fans are listening, they're saying, well, Mike, this is a good opportunity for Mbakwe to stay, and they can go ahead and make the move to the wide receiver position.
Yeah. I tend to think that they will just lean towards the running game. They have a lot of tight ends that are healthy. They have some running backs that are healthy. Their offensive line's in pretty good shape. Run the ball 50 times. Get in and out. To me, it doesn't make sense to expose Ryan Williams that much.
Has he turned 18 yet?
February, I think it is.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. Kobe Prentice, by the way, is going to Baylor. He just put that out there. So.
Looks like that breaking news here.
Auburn will see him in week 1 next year.
Yeah.
In Waco.
Yep. Kobe Prentice to Baylor. So, it's going to be an interesting bowl game. You have some defensive guys that are out. Obviously, Lawson, Q Robinson, they're out. Now you just lost Payne. You're down some guys in the secondary. Not that Michigan's really going to threaten you, but
can they just play a flag football game on the beach and be done with it?
I just don't know what they're doing with these bowl
games.
Just
eat some wings.
just have a wing eating contest. You fly in for that, Mike. And
they've already flown in. That's the funny thing. They had Byrne and DeBoer and Sharon Moore. They already had to fly in for that
saw
signing.
The video, yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
It's bowl season. Mike Rodak's going to hang out for another segment with us. We'll talk to him about Bill Belichick, an individual that he covered on a daily basis.
Mr. Excitement.
Yeah, in the National Football League, as everyone in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, getting ready to.
Chapel Bill, Pat.
That's right. ACC champions for next year coming out of that place. More Mike Rodak. This is Three-Man Front Live at Social Taco, Jocks 94.5. Welcome back in. It's hour number 2, Three-Man Front. Pat Smith, Landrum Roberts. We are live here at Social Taco here on the Taco Terrace as folks are already streaming in here as the doors opened up just a couple moments ago as we get ready for a wonderful afternoon here at Social Taco. Mike Rodak is joining us here on site as we're talking transfer portal and been talking a lot about what's going on in Tuscaloosa. I wanted to ask you, Mike, about a Mississippi State wide receiver that was in Tuscaloosa visiting. You were just telling us that Alabama, as the numbers look right now, they might have 4 wide receivers for the bowl game. Now, of course, anybody that comes out of the portal, they cannot play for 2 teams in one season, so that's not eligible to play in the bowl game. But I set this up because the former Clay Chalkville wide receiver who was over at Mississippi State, who visited Tuscaloosa, that's Mario Craver, he has just committed to another SEC school, and it's not Alabama.
Right, yeah, or at least expected to commit from Matt Zenitz of 247 that, crystal balled Mario Craver to Texas A&M.
Okay.
So that was another guy that Alabama looked like they had a pretty good shot at, had visited Alabama this week. Local product, like you said. I played with Mbakwe at Clay Chalkville.
Yeah.
And another guy that is headed elsewhere. So it's, it's been an interesting sequence in terms of guys who have visited and not stayed at Alabama. Like, they can't get guys to stay and then, not go somewhere else. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly why that's happening, but when you see a school like A&M that wins the battle, I think we all know that money is probably a pretty big factor there.
How much of this do you think caught Kalen DeBoer, his staff, by surprise, just with some of these changes? Because it does, and maybe this is unfair, but just the optics of it looks like everybody else was kind of ahead of the game, and Kalen DeBoer and that staff kind of got caught looking around.
Yeah, it's still fairly new to him. It's not like Kalen DeBoer at Washington was getting into transfer portal battles with A&M and Ole Miss and LSU and some of the schools that Alabama's kind of going at right now. It's probably similar for Courtney Morgan, who came with them. So, but there's also more resources at Alabama than they had at Washington. So it's hard to explain. I don't know if it caught him by surprise. I'm sure he knew that it was going to be a competitive environment. But you got to find a way to close the deal on some of these players. And every situation might be a little bit different. But right now they're striking out. There's no doubt about it that the guys they brought in, they've struck out on so far. And there's not a lot of spots open on the roster. I think they're going to get some help from guys that are coming back who might have gone into the draft. But you still need to have receivers. You still need to have some offensive linemen. You still probably need to have some corners at this point. Like, that's been something he's hammered home. Like, numbers-wise, they need guys. And maybe you can't it's probably hurting them a little bit that they can't guarantee a starting job when you have guys like Bernard and Ryan Williams, when you have guys like Xavier Brown and Damani Jackson. But can you close the deal to get some good depth players is the question right now.
And you're talking about the depth because, granted, I'm not as familiar with the Texas A&M roster as I am Alabama and Auburn's, but it seems like these other schools are finding ways to not only find a roster spot and at least tell these kids what they want to hear, and they're paying them. Why is not Alabama being able to translate that message to these kids?
Let me check my calendar. Let's see. Kalen DeBoer is scheduled to have a press conference at 1:20 on Wednesday. That is a great question that I think people want to know the answer to, this week. And it's something that
that same question would be being asked on National Signing Day.
Yep.
If all of a sudden you find yourself, if you're an Alabama football fan and you're looking at the recruiting rankings and you go from number 2, according to the 247 composite, to about 11 or 12, you are unable to close on certain kids. Why can't Alabama close on kids out of the portal?
In recruiting rankings-wise, they're not going to stay at 2. They're going to go down to 5 because Ty Haywood's not going to be staying as part of this class. So once he officially decommits, they're going to be 5th in this upcoming class, 2025. But right now, they're at 0 players for 2026. For high school players, that class, and portal-wise, they're off the board as well. They haven't brought a single guy in. It's tough to explain right now. I think money is certainly near the top of the list, but it's something they're gonna have to answer to. I think is kind of what it boils down to.
Mike Rodak continuing to join us here on Three Man Front live from Social Taco in Homewood. You covered the Bills, you covered the Patriots. You're very familiar with one Bill Belichick.
Yep.
How surprised were you when you heard more and more, and it kept trending, and I kept thinking it was going to go away. One side would walk away, but then we get the announcement, 3 years guaranteed, the money that they're going to allot for them to operate. You just knowing his personality, how does that work in Chapel Hill?
I don't think the personality will be a big issue because it's either going to go one of two ways. And I think that you can already tell with some of the videos they put out social media-wise. You can read your reaction on our North Carolina board, Inside Carolina. There's a certain amount of deference that's being shown from their fan base, from their boosters, et cetera, to Bill Belichick because he is Bill Belichick. And that's going to last at least a year, maybe 2. And if he wins in that period, then it's going to last longer, and he's going to prove himself. If he flops and fans start to question him, he'll be 73, 74 years old. Go back to Nantucket. So
it depends on what Jordan wants to do, his 24-year-old girlfriend.
And that's the interesting part, too. Like, his personal situation, it's like, I think he just wants to keep working, too. Like, I think he's fine with feeling young, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And kind of still living his life as if he was in his 30s or 40s. So, again, it's going to go one of two ways, and I don't think his personality matters as much because it's either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't work, I think he's just going to leave. But to me, it's like the actual personnel evaluation, the actual coaching part of it, people are taking for granted too much because it was not working his last 4 or 5 years in New England. He was missing on draft picks. He was missing on free agents. He was not coaching the team. They were, terrible on special teams the last couple of years, like an area where he was always great. And I would wonder more about that than I would about him relating to players or relating to donors or whatever the case may be. Like the actual football part of it, everybody looks at him as the greatest ever, which is a big body of work to say he is, but the last half decade has not been true for him. And is it true at North Carolina?
I asked a well-respected coach, and he knows both Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, and he said people think that they're wired the same, and there are a lot of similarities, but Nick Saban gets enjoyment out of other things in life. He said, this sounds harsh, don't let it, but Bill Belichick literally has nothing else to live for except to coach a football team.
Right. Yeah, you live on Nantucket, you might go fishing a little bit, you might go golfing here and there, but that's kind of where he's at in his life. Like, I think he still wants to coach. I think he likes the challenge too of like, you come in, you build it all back up. It's like he was just starting as the Patriots coach, and that was probably a great time in his life. Like, you go from a team that was 5-11, and then you turn into a Super Bowl champion a year later. Everybody loves you. Like, to do that again at North Carolina, I think you kind of get that thrill, that rush, that adrenaline kind of going again, where things kind of got stale over time in New England. You won 6 Super Bowls. I'm sure the 5th and 6th didn't feel quite the same as the 1st and 2nd. And if he was somehow able to get into the playoffs and win something at North Carolina, I'm sure that feeling would kind of come back to how it was when he first started. So there's probably a certain amount of euphoria chasing going on there, I would imagine, too.
I know you don't cover North Carolina, but you're very well connected around the country when it comes to college football. I had heard that John Sumrall had serious conversations with North Carolina. I just wonder, like, what in the world, how does that communication, you're speculating, it goes from you're dealing with a John Sumrall and a Matt Campbell potentially in Chapel Hill to all of a sudden, is it because Belichick gets a no from the Jets as he kicks the tires, and then obviously they make a call and Bubba Cunningham gets enamored and drunk with the potential of selling T-shirts in Chapel Hill?
Tommy Reese supposedly was the
next guy,
which was not on the radar either. I think it's probably true to say at first Belichick was probably testing the NFL waters through North Carolina to essentially say, I know that NFL jobs may not all open up for another couple weeks, but I need to make a run at this job now. Like, that's when the North Carolina job is open, and speak now or forever hold your peace to those other teams. And there's probably an element of kind of leveraging going on there, but you probably get to a point where he talks with the North Carolina people, and you probably talk to Nick Saban, I'm sure, and you just kind of learn that college football is closer to the NFL, and there's the new house settlement, there's a salary cap, and it all goes back.
Because you see Nick Saban having a phone conversation with him, recommending him to get into the college game right now, considering the fact that the college game ran off Nick Saban?
I can see Nick saying, here's how it is now. If you want to take it, go for it. Like, and you could tell when Saban was asked about it on the McAfee show last week, like, he didn't exactly give the most ringing endorsement of the idea, but I'm sure he maybe not recommended one way or the other with Belichick, but kind of said, hey, like, if you think you can build the team through the portal like it's free agency, then go try to do it. They just brought in a Holy Cross offensive lineman yesterday. Like, we'll see if they can a Rice offensive tackle, I think they're looking at as well. They are looking at Caleb Odom. But, we'll see if it works. I mean, the ACC is probably winnable. That's probably another allure for Belichick, is that you just need to win the ACC, and you have maybe a top 4 seed. Didn't work for Clemson this year, but there's a path to just winning that conference. But man, it's crazy. You asked me 2 years ago, when Bill O'Brien and Bill Belichick were coaching in New England that tell me that they'll be at ACC media days as head coaches of Boston College in North Carolina 2 years later. I would not have believed you. So to go back to your original question, yes, I am surprised that this is where it has ended up.
Of the hires we got this year in this go-around with the Power 4 schools, do you think Belichick has the best chance of having early success, or maybe a Scott Frost going back to UCF? Barry Odom, he's got an uphill climb there in West Lafayette.
No, it's Dan Mullen at UNLV. What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the current –
even Dan can screw that up. You know that, right?
There's one more year, at least, of this current playoff setup. And I think the way it's set up right now, as we probably have talked about for a month now, like, it does give some benefit to teams like UNLV or UCF or North Carolina. Like, those are teams probably have an easier path than the 4th or 5th SEC team, as we've seen. So, you know, I can see Belichick being competitive in the ACC next year, but I can also see Dan Mullen taking the UNLV team and potentially being the best Group of 5 team. Those are probably easier lifts than trying to take a mid-tier Big Ten or mid-tier SEC job and trying to turn that into a playoff team.
Mike Rodak joins us from Bama 247 for a couple more minutes. So before we let you go, I wanted to ask you about the basketball program in Tuscaloosa. This SEC is going to be just an incredible conference basketball season because they have absolutely just demolished the national competition. Anytime the SEC's gone up against any conference, you name it, Big 12, ACC, they've taken care of business. Pecking order as of this moment, where do you have Alabama in that order in the SEC?
I mean, third, I think, is reasonable right now. Obviously, Auburn and Tennessee are right there at the top of the country and, you know, therefore the top of the SEC. And, you know, it's probably between Alabama and Kentucky for that third spot right now. Florida, I think, is also in that mix, a team that has done a lot of good things under Todd Golden, you know, basketball-wise. And we'll just kind of have to see how it all shakes out. You know, there's going to be some tough road games for this Alabama team. There's going to be some tough home games, too. And they need to shoot better. I think that's a point of emphasis right now from Nate Oates, given where their three-point shooting is relative to where it's been historically for his program. It's definitely lower. Their defense is better than what it was last year, but I think they still consistently need to play better on defense. We saw them kind of collapse in the last 8 minutes against Creighton. I think, you know, Nate said it was a 1.5 points per possession that they gave up in the last 8 minutes compared to like a 0.8 in the first 32 minutes, which was a problem. And they've had some games like that this year where they've gotten out the leads and they've just kind of let off the gas. It's happened 4 or 5 times now. So you can see the potential. You can see, like, this can absolutely be the number 1 team in the country. This can absolutely be a national title contender. But the overall product is still not fully there yet with this team, and maybe just with young blood getting into it, you know, coming back from his injury, and just more chemistry with a lot of new players as you get into SEC play. But it's going to be tough. Like, your Auburn games, your Tennessee game, your Kentucky games are going to decide where you're seated in the NCAA tournament.
The NCAA net rankings I was looking at yesterday, and the SEC teams that are in the top 10, their record versus Quad 1, 14-4 heading
good
into tonight.
Yeah, I think overall Alabama, last time I checked, has like 18 or 19 Quad 1 games, which you might have at the end of the year once you've played in the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. To have it before you're even considering those games, that's a lot. They have a Quad 4 game coming up tomorrow night at North Dakota, which it's going to be about 3 degrees outside up there. It's, you know, it's kind of a Grant Nelson appreciation game because he was at North Dakota State, and he's from Devil's Lake, North Dakota, which is about 90 minutes outside. So different kind of road game for him, but you know, they have that coming up tomorrow night.
That is Mike Rodak. You can follow his work at Bama 247. We've taken enough of your time because I know your phone's going off. The transfer portal never sleeps.
Nope.
Always open. So happy holidays to you and your family.
It's a beautiful time of the year. I can see why Nick Saban got out of it.
Yeah, we can too, by the way.
Yeah, that is Mike Rodak joining us here. We're live at Social Taco Landrum, and a lot of great listeners already coming in here, getting their orders ready as doors open up at 11.
Yeah, we got PG, his family. We got other folks that are joining us. We got other people that are committed to come later on. We broadcast until 2 o'clock. We're going to be here. Festivities continuing throughout the afternoon. You can come up top here in the terrace. We got an ugly sweater contest.
It's at 1:30, right?
Yeah, they're going to have, and they got a gift certificate they're going to award to the winner of that. But you can come and join us. We love meeting all of our great listeners, a great time of year, be together with family and friends, and you can do it here today at Social Taco in the Square in Homewood. We are three-man front, and we continue here on Jocks 94.5.
It is 11:20, Jocks 94.5. We've got playoff football starting in college football on Friday night. Then we got 3 games on Saturday. Joining us at the bottom of the hour, Vince Ferrara does morning show on our sister station in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Sports Animal. He is going to join us, and we're going to get his thoughts on the Tennessee Volunteers. It's supposed to be a mini Tennessee takeover of the Horseshoe in Columbus.
After the leak.
They have tried to get tickets, and a lot of Ohio State fans apparently have given up those tickets. So I think you're going to see a lot of orange there at the Horseshoe coming up this weekend. Well, over the last couple of days, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of Christmas shopping, and, of course, one of my go-to spots is Bama Fever Tiger Pride because they've got a fresh stock of sweatshirts, jackets, quarter zips, and vests, as well as everyday items like T-shirts, hats, polos, and tailgate gear. I was able to get a couple of items knocked off my Christmas to-do list by heading over to the Bama Fever Tiger Pride store there in Trussville. They've got 9 locations around this great state of Alabama for you to go visit. They appreciate over 40 years of support for their store, so get by and see them. That is Bama Fever and Tiger Pride. Your thoughts on, well, Alabama fan, you've got to be concerned what you are hearing, what you are seeing, because I know it's a long game, Landrum, but out of the gate here, I mean, we're kind of joking around. It doesn't even seem like Alabama's at the paddock yet.
No, and again, and that's why I brought it up to him, just the number of names. And not saying that these were all starters, and we know that some of them, their role had diminished, but for Alabama at least, it seems like there's a lot more big names that are percolating. And some of them, it's just rumblings right now, and they haven't officially entered the portal. But if you compare that, and some of the other teams, they're in the college football playoff, but you're not really seeing it, it doesn't seem like, in the numbers from some of those other programs that you're seeing there. And I think with Kalen DeBoer, naturally you're going to think, all right, is this a cultural thing? Is this a matter of something deeper? Is there an underlying issue? Or is this just a matter of money? And we were talking about it in the break. You know, the intimidation, Nick Saban being the GOAT, I think it would have been a heck of a lot harder for these guys to go into that office and to stare that man in the face and to say, Coach, I'm leaving, I got a better offer, than it would be to go and do it to a guy that you've known for not even a year now. I think that weighs into it, but if you have 5 stars coming out of high school, you've got Alabama and that logo next to your name in the portal, I think that naturally it's going to drive the price up, and it's going to drive what people are willing to pay, whether you're worthy of it or not. And we're getting that. And people are drunk with money right now at certain programs, and the need to win and to continue to replace the 11 on that side or the 11 on that side to try to get to the college football playoff, which is now the goal every year. It remains a really competitive market. So I don't know. I do think that some of this may be just as fast-paced as it's been. I find it hard to believe that Kalen DeBoer totally expected all of this.
Well,
what about you?
Well, one thing's for sure, they have a plan, supposedly. I know a lot of people scratching their heads right now because they're not really sure what that plan exactly is. But take a look at the recruiting. You had an interview by Courtney Morgan, who's the general manager. He did an interview on Mike's website with Alex Scarborough. And basically he took an indirect shot at Auburn because Auburn sent out graphics. Hugh Freeze talked about how important it was to win the state of Alabama in recruiting, right? Mm-hmm. And Alabama was able to go out, at least on signing day. They had the number 2 ranked class in America, and Courtney Morgan said, look, you know, we're not just looking for players in the state of Alabama. We're looking for the best players to fit what we want to do nationally, and that's why they signed, 4 kids out of California.
Right.
You know, those kids were a priority. Well, you can also look at it because Alabama had a relationship, or at least Kalen DeBoer and a lot of those guys on the staff, with West Coast guys, as opposed to anybody in the Southeastern Conference outside of Freddie Roach, who else had been recruiting in the Southeast. So now all of a sudden, with some of these guys that you signed last year under Nick Saban, are now finding elsewhere that they're being wanted from the transfer portal. And maybe the DeBoer staff, not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just speculating, perhaps he's sitting there going, well, maybe that just was not going to be fitting what our particular plan was going to be. Like, it was important for them to kind of stave off a lot of those guys from leaving last year. You had over 31 guys leave. Let's kind of keep these guys in, but now we want to be able to get the guys that we want and need in there, and maybe this is just another portion of a small purge, so to speak, and maybe that's why you're not seeing Alabama really go crazy in the transfer portal yet.
Yeah, and maybe that's the case. I do think it's going to be easier for some of these guys to leave after a 9-3 season, after a change with,
Absolutely.
with a coaching staff, and the grass is always greener, and you're going to go and make more money. And I do believe in some cases, now some of it's personal reasons that don't see the light of day, or the public never knows why a guy truly intends to, but there's issues, whether it's a family illness, whether it's something going on with your personal life. But if you've been at a certain place 4 years and this is your last hurrah, I could see a 22-year-old, 23-year-old going, you know what, I wonder what it's like to go and play on Saturdays in South Bend, Indiana, or go and play for that program, or I wonder what it's like in Waco, Texas, or some of these other places. I know what Tuscaloosa's like. Maybe I want to experience it. And, oh, by the way, they're going to give me $250,000 more than I was getting in Alabama, and I get, I don't know, a shoe deal, whatever. You can't really fault a guy, but right now it does look like Alabama's trying to play catch-up in the early portions of the transfer portal.
Yeah, and listen, Mike reported it, and Mike brought it up. I mean, it's a situation where they've already had some guys come into Tuscaloosa, and back in the old days, if somebody showed up in Tuscaloosa, very rarely did they leave Tuscaloosa without a signed deal, and that includes guys. I can't even remember any transfer portal guys that Saban brought in because they were very particular. I mean, I don't remember Jahmyr Gibbs running off and going and looking somewhere else once he came to Tuscaloosa. So that's the question. And at the end of the day, you know, they've already failed one test this year, and that was not making the college football playoff with, according to 247, the very best roster in college football. So there's one thing that's been knocked off of you. Now you're going to lose a kid in the recruiting that had propped your ratings up, and you heard Mike, he says that when he reclassifies, then all of a sudden Alabama's not going to be the number 2 or number 3. They're going to be number 5, number 6 in the recruiting rankings, and then not being able to go out and get what you perceive as the top names in the transfer portal, all of a sudden you're going into year 2. It's looking a whole heck of a lot different in regards to having that confidence level that he's going to be able to get them into a position to make the college football playoff.
Well, and it's different than in the past. We saw guys that maybe they had huge upside, but we hadn't seen it, or they were raw and we haven't seen it. But with some of these guys, you've already seen it in an Alabama uniform. They're really good players, and they're going to be really good players, and a lot of them are young in their careers. And unfortunately, those are the guys that are getting away. So at some point, whether it's development or bringing in the 5 stars out of the high school ranks, you have to replace some of that talent that is ready to go on Saturdays beginning the 2025 season. Where are you there as you assess your roster, and what does that look like in some of those position groups? Another thing to think about, too, with some of these players and going in, and I had somebody ask me this, do you think that with the lack of player development that changes schematically what some of these programs do? Because you haven't had a guy in that system, do they dumb it down now that we're in the portal era? I don't know if that's a real thing or not. Maybe we could ask Bill Clark about that. But for some of these systems where in the old days you had guys that were in there 2-3 years, they finally got their shot and they knew it like the back of their hand. Outside of the service academies, I don't know if we really get that anymore.
Yeah, it's a good point. When we come back on Three-Man Front, we're going to go up to Rocky Top. We're going to get the very latest. I just saw a report that 42% of the tickets that have been purchased on SeatGeek have been purchased by people in the state of Tennessee for the Ohio State-Tennessee game.
Where is Gene Smith right now? Because remember, he said we're not playing in Columbus, Ohio in December.
Yeah. So we'll talk to Vince Ferrara from our sister station in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Sports Animal. That is next. We're live at Social Taco here on Jocks 94.5. It is 11:34, Jocks 94.5. Let's head up to our sister station, the Sports Animal, up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Vince Ferrara does an outstanding job. Morning show host there on the Sports Animal joins us. Talk a little college football playoff as the Tennessee Volunteers. And Vince, I just read a story that it looks like about 42% of the tickets purchased at SeatGeek have come from residents from the great state of Tennessee. My question to you is, will there be over 40,000 orange-clad Tennessee fans there in the Horseshoe coming up this weekend?
Wow, that's such a big number. I need to see that. I need to see all the people with the orange, the Tennessee flags zooming by on the interstate to fully buy into that. Barrett Sallee had said, I guess like a few days ago, this past weekend, maybe 35%. Since the allotment only was 3,500 to Tennessee, that would mean about 26,000 tickets purchased from Ohio State fans. So that's a lot. I mean, I know they're mad about the Michigan game. Come on, you still have a chance to win the national championship. But apparently there are still a bunch available that Tennessee – now they're overpriced, so Tennessee fans have been getting a bunch. 40,000 plus, that's a lot. But I certainly expect a good chunk of fans there in orange, and man, they will make their presence known like they typically do on the road.
Vince, as you're talking to your listeners on your show there in Tennessee, what's the biggest concern? What aspect of Tennessee's game is the biggest concern taking on the Buckeyes in the Horseshoe?
I would say it's the cold weather and the venue. I know some are saying no, that's not a big deal, and I'm more on that side of it because it does get cold here. We're not the deep south. We're not in South Florida. I mean, it's snow. They practiced in the snow last Wednesday morning, so it's not totally unknown to them. But I think it's that it more so than anything. I think Tennessee fans are generally pretty confident. They're looking at the way Ohio State played against Michigan and said, if that's the Ohio State that's playing us, we're going to beat them. I think they feel like the Ohio State hasn't seen the speed and athleticism that they'll see from Tennessee, and then the defense as well. They feel like that will travel. The running game with Dylan Sampson, the offensive player of the year. So I think generally Tennessee fans are confident. I wouldn't say overconfident, but when we hear from them, they feel like they're going to win that game. But I would say maybe the temps is what we hear about probably more than anything else. And you got to include the talent. If they're not saying it, that should be the biggest concern is the talent they have at Ohio State to play up to their potential. So maybe silently that's what would be their biggest concern.
Obviously, Alabama fans got a chance up close and personal to see Nico. Nico did not have an outstanding football game against Alabama. Some people going into this game say that could be the wild card in this game, that Nico needs to have a better than average game against a very good Ohio State defense. So what kind of letter grade would you give Nico this year at the starting quarterback for the Vols?
Well, what's interesting is that game really flipped. The way he played in the second half was much different than the way he played in the first half. And that has really been the turning point for Nico's play, was the second half against Alabama, where he played much, much better and helped Tennessee get to the finish line after that rough first half. And he has been better and better each week ever since. So that was an important game that was a lot different. So as far as a letter grade, I would say a B. I think he's turned the ball over a little bit, but 5 interceptions as a first-year starter in the SEC, that's not terrible. I feel like people maybe because he had that rough stretch where he wasn't throwing a ton of touchdowns and they weren't scoring in the first half and they were winning with running game and defense, I think a lot of times there's been sort of this image of that being the entire season for Nico. Look, his offensive line was not protecting him there, so he was feeling rush even when it wasn't there, and oftentimes it was. So the offensive line, especially the tackles, have gotten better since, and you've seen him settle in. His accuracy has been better. Man, that Georgia game, he looked like he belonged on a big stage. They didn't win that game. Well, that wasn't on him. So he's passed some nice tests since that Alabama game. So I think because he's gotten better, and obviously he was super hot out of the gate, just had that rough patch in the middle. I'd say B plus for him this year. I think he's done a real nice job especially with a lot of the intangibles besides those stats.
And so when you look at the bracket and you look at Tennessee and the path to get to just play in the national championship game, to me it seems like whether it's the schools represented out of the SEC, I guess you could throw in Ohio State and Oregon, but it doesn't really seem to be a clear-cut favorite because it's been so fickle week to week throughout the college football season. Do you have a clear-cut favorite? Do you think there is one team that is head and shoulders above someone else? And does that maybe offer an opportunity for this Tennessee team to get hot at the right time and everything clicks and win a title?
Definitely. The way you phrased it, clear-cut, I don't think there is. Oregon is the favorite. They're the unbeaten. I'd say they have less flaws than other teams, but everybody has flaws and issues. And then a number of these teams in this field, practically everybody except for Oregon, has had moments where you're like, ooh, that's not good. And then they have other moments where they look really good. So they've had peaks, they've had valleys, and they've had more of the positives than the negatives to be in this position. But Oregon at times, against some of their better opponents, given up a ton of yards and even points in some cases like Penn State. So I don't think they're unbeatable. If you put one team down and said them or the field, including Oregon, I would always go with the field because a number of these teams, not any of them, but a number of them can get hot. I would put Tennessee in that category. I think the quarterback play could be an X factor for them if Nico continues to play better. In addition to their run game and high-level defense, that's one of the best in the field. I think that's an ingredient to win on the road and get hot. And so, yeah, I would put Tennessee in that category. They're what-ifs for sure, but I think you could say that about a bunch of teams. So, yeah, it is wide open in my opinion. I take the field on any bet.
Vince Ferrara joins us, morning show host there on our sister station in Knoxville, the Sports Animal, as the Tennessee Vols get ready to head up towards Columbus, Ohio, to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Let me ask you about Dylan Sampson. It's kind of crazy, in my opinion, covering this league as long as I've covered it. And you look at a running back like Dylan Sampson, best running back in the Southeastern Conference, broke all sorts of Tennessee rushing records this year. Why in the world was he not standing in New York City last weekend? What happened with his Heisman campaign?
That's a great point. Not only was he not in New York, he wasn't in the top 10 in voting. So that tells you that, look, a lot of people that are Heisman voters of a lot of the postseason awards, they are sent a ballot, and then you fill it out, and maybe you've had time to watch college football and research it. Maybe you have not. And I think a lot of times people are just looking at stats, making a quick decision, and then sending them in. I think he should have been. When you talk about how much he carried them during their tough stretch during the year, they didn't fall apart because of his run game, his improved game all the way around, whether it's pass catching, pass blocking, his leadership, all those kind of things. Oh, by the way, the 22 touchdowns, which is an all-time record for the University of Tennessee, single-season rushing record in yards. The best single-season for any Tennessee running back with all he accomplished, with, as you guys know, a lot of great backs that have played in Knoxville, and one of the best SEC rushing seasons ever. So against high-level competition, you go on and on. I do think he should have been there, and I think he was undervalued because maybe the yards per carry weren't as spectacular as an Ashton Genty or maybe a couple of other guys. So I think it was a slight, as far as a campaign, I think Tennessee waited on that. And then, after the loss to Georgia, I just don't think you saw it. I think you probably would have late in the year, but you can be influenced late in the season. And I think they were ready to go with a, I don't want to say total campaign, but maybe a more aggressive approach. Had they won that game and maybe been, a conference champion or in Atlanta, Didn't play out, so they put their information out there, but just not a hardcore campaign. I don't know that was a total impact, but just something to consider.
How active do you expect Josh Heupel and that staff in Knoxville to be in the transfer portal when it's all said and done?
They're active in terms of talking to guys and filling guys, but even last year, they were among the lowest in guys out and guys in the portal. I think it was Tennessee and LSU were the lowest in that. So they had a number of DBs leave last year, and then they didn't make up the total numbers, but they made them up in quality, like a guy in Jermod McCoy from Oregon State. So they're a little bit more selective. Certainly they're going to have some losses on the line of scrimmage on the offensive and defensive lines. That's where you're seeing the most interest in offers right now. But it's not like Ole Miss. They're not taking that type of approach. They've still tried to be based on their signing class and then add, I'd say, anywhere from 6 to 10, depending on who's available at that time. So, yeah, they'll add. They just want to have a higher hit percentage in the guys that they bring in and not be totally reliant on the portal like some schools are.
All right, Vince, if you want to give us a prediction, we would love one. But if not, how do you see this game kind of playing out there at the Horseshoe?
I do think it'll be lower scoring. I mean, these are two of the top 3 teams in stop rate on the season, which, as you guys have probably talked about, it's punts, it's missed kicks, it's turnovers, all those kind of turnover on downs, all those kind of things. And then neither one of these two teams give up big plays. Ohio State's only given up 2 plays of 40-plus yards on the year. Tennessee's only given up 3. Those are 2 of the 3 best in the country also. You know, a lot of other stats where both of them are really high defensively. Tennessee's also really good in offensive efficiency. Ohio State's played really good offense at times, and then maybe later in the year they didn't play as much, and certainly fans were not happy at all with their game plan against Michigan. I think it'll be lower scoring. I think that the quarterback position is going to be big. Can Nico outplay Will Howard? And can Tennessee contain Will Howard from the run game element because he's inconsistent throwing it? I give Ohio State the edge, very slight, because of the talent level. A lot of people talk about Michigan, but Michigan's in their head, and they play better when it's not Michigan. They're at home. So I think Ohio State, I give them the slight edge to win, but I would not be surprised either way. I think Tennessee is very capable of winning this game and sending shockwaves through college football because I think a lot of people would be locked in on this one.
I was going to ask you, I'll go ahead and do it. So who is more likely to win a national title? Would it be Tennessee football or Rick Barnes and the basketball team?
That's a great question. I would say still probably basketball in the end. I think they have maybe even a better team than they did a year ago with Dalton Knecht leading the way. I think they're more balanced, but you have to go through so many games, so many more teams, all that kind of stuff. So it is definitely a tough call, and Tennessee football is right there. But man, it's still not easy to win those 4 games. So I'd lean basketball, but it's still not an easy call.
That is Vince Ferrara joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Vince, listen, we appreciate your time. Give everyone our best there at the wonderful Cumulus Media headquarters in K-Town, and we appreciate it very much, and happy holidays.
Hey, same to you guys. Really appreciate it. Great to be on with you. Thank you.
Thanks. That is Vince Ferrara joining us from the Sports Animal.
I'm going the under.
Knoxville. You like the under?
Yeah, I think so. I like that pick. Low-scoring game.
Right now, Tennessee is plus 7.5. Right now, I just checked it out.
If Nico wins
Plus
a national
7.5.
title this year, will they name a street after him?
Yes. Dylan Sampson will get a street named after him. Heupel will get multiple buildings on campus named after him.
5 years from now, you imagine the Uber driver. Do I take a ride on E.M. Aliava or do I? No, go down Heupel.
Heupel Way.
Yeah. And what is Fat Phil doing right now?
Oh, I'm sure he'll be sitting in a box.
Calling somebody a bitch?
Probably. That's what he does. Yeah.
Fun person.
All right, that's the Tennessee side of things. Next hour, we're going to go out to the Metroplex. We're going to talk to a gentleman that covers the SMU Mustangs. They're getting ready for a nice cold visit to South Bend, Indiana, as they're going to take on the Fighting Irish coming up on Friday night.
SMU's going to Happy Valley.
I'm sorry. SMU's going to Happy Valley. Yes.
Indiana's making
Indiana.
a long track.
Yeah, the 200
South
miles.
Bend.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. It's all Yankee territory to me. It's all the same.
All those cold weather states are all the same.
Yeah, all the gray Big Ten stadiums.
Sun never shines. Snow shovels, galoshes.
Yeah, it's
just casseroles that aren't good.
no. There's no telling.
No good hot dish.
But yeah, we'll get the SMU side of things
Pony up.
as they're playing a team that has no backup quarterback. Right?
What could go wrong?
No, it's all good.
Run the ball 50 times.
All right, the crowd continues to swell here. It's a special. It's our last Tuesday before Christmas. We will not be here next Tuesday.
No.
So that's why we're celebrating
Yes.
today.
Come and join us. We're here at Social Taco. We're going to broadcast until 2. We're going to hang out after that. We got a ugly, if I could say it. It's a sweater. Ugly sweater contest, gift certificate. Going to be given away to the winner. It is a time for fun and fellowship. Social Taco, 3-man front and Jocks 94.5. Welcome back. 3 Man Front, our Christmas celebration live here at Social Taco in Homewood. Come in and see us as we're going to be here all afternoon long. If you're a sports fan, you can turn your sports knowledge into real cash fast with Prize Picks. It's never been easier. Download the app today. Use code WJOX. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. This football season, Prize Picks has got you covered. Sign up today. Play just $5 and get $50 instantly. That's right, $50 guaranteed, even if you don't win. Download the app today. Make sure you use code WJOX. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's easy. It's simple. Have fun with your friends. Must be 18 or older. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. We go to the phone lines, and Trey wants to chime in. Trey, welcome into 3 Man Front. Trey.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
We got you, man. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I made an Instagram story yesterday talking about Jalen Mbakwe transferring, and I tagged him on my post, and lo and behold, he actually swiped up and started chatting with me, and he quote unquote said, well, I told him, I started poking at him about how there's rumors that he's going to Ole Miss, and he said, nobody said I was going there. And he said, y'all think that, the media thinks that, so watch out. And I said, can you blame Alabama fans for being upset? We love you. He said, nah, y'all just can't take what y'all are getting right now, and it's the staff's fault. So just to clear it up, it's not about money, it's for me and my family. So take with that what you want, but apparently it's the coaching staff's fault.
Very interesting.
And if y'all want to, y'all can go and look at my Instagram. I've got it up on my story.
What's your Instagram?
Trey, Trey.Tuck.
Okay. Trey.Tuck. Tuck.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep. We'll check it out. Trey, we appreciate you sharing, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Merry Christmas. What do you think, Pat? Sounded authentic.
Absolutely. I don't doubt anything that he was telling us. I think anybody that, it was, and Mike brought it up earlier, you had Mbakwe, had an opportunity where you got to see him some in the early part of the season, but on the back end of the season did not see as much as you did at the beginning of the year. Maybe that is what he was referring to from a situation of frustration, perhaps.
All right, well, Trey, I found your Instagram. Good-looking picture of a deer you killed. Yeah, it's right there on the story. And he has got screenshots of the communication with what looks to be like Jalen Mbakwe.
So maybe not an Ole Miss, according to that, right?
Yeah. We continue. 3 Man Front live from Social Taco in Homewood.
It is 12 noon here at Social Taco. Come by and see us. The Taco Terrace is filling up. Still a couple seats available if you want to come by and have a late lunch. Say hello to the great gang here. A lot of great Jocks listeners coming in and sitting down, having a great lunch and having an opportunity to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We will not be here next Tuesday because obviously it will be Christmas week, but we'll be back the following week. So, yeah, it's a great time here at Social Taco.
Well, don't get caught in the cold. Schedule your system checkup now from a Train comfort specialist. Train has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. So visit Train.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
Okay, so we just had a caller call in and say that he and Mbakwe, the outstanding cornerback at the University of Alabama, the freshman 5-star plus from Clay Chalkwell High School, who story came out last night, and he put it on social media that he is looking to enter the transfer portal, says that this is a business decision. Mike Rodak from Bama 247, he joined us here on site just a couple minutes ago, and he told us that it had appeared that late last night it was trending back to Mbakwe maybe staying in Tuscaloosa. Then he said this morning it was trending back, perhaps going to Ole Miss. So there's a lot of back and forth with that, and you just heard our last caller talking about on the DMs with Mbakwe last night. He made the comment that it was a coaching staff situation. So take that for what it's worth. 1-800-239-WJOX. Let's go to Josh in Birmingham. He joins us next. Wants to talk a little bit about this transfer portal. Hey, Josh.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Good, Josh.
That's good. I'm a long-time listener of the show. When it comes to the transfer portal and all this player mobility that we're seeing, I think and we have to get to a point where we just kind of recognize that it is what it is and it's going to be what it's going to be. I think some of it was, as an Auburn fan, I guess on the outside looking in, I think some of it is Alabama fans just aren't used to guys not really wanting to be at Alabama as much as the fans think they do. But, with a lot of these kids, it is a business decision. And I think in the age of the portal and NIL and just the way the game is moving, we're just going to have to accept that, this is what college football is going to look like. And to be completely honest with you, behind the scenes, this is kind of what it's looked like in the past. It's just now the NCAA said it's a free-for-all. And, I also think that, as far as, kids leaving, we also have to look at the other side of the portal. Like, yeah, we all get, a little excited when guys leave our schools, but, everybody wants to regulate the portal and say this and say that. But I feel like it's fair because for every one guy that goes to 4 or 5 schools, there's another guy that goes to 4 or 5 schools and can't get on the field. So I feel like the risk, versus the reward is fair. I feel like, if a young man wants to take his future into his hands and transfer 3, 4, 5 times, then who are we to tell him that he shouldn't be able to do that, especially if there's money involved. And the schools also bear responsibility in this because if you are recruiting a guy that's, been to 3, 4, 5 different schools and he hasn't worked there and you choose to recruit that kid and he doesn't work, that's not the kid's fault. You made a bad business decision. I feel like it's turning into a free market, and if that's what it's going to be, then we should just allow it to be that. We may not like it, but if you peel the curtain back on any industry, it's going to be a little ugly and a little nasty. And college football is no different. College sports is no different. It's always been this way. It's just now the NCAA said we're not going to penalize you guys for what you're already doing. Tampering has already been happening. Recruiting, as far as money being exchanged, it's already been. We've been seeing it happen since the 80s and 90s. I played high school ball. I was recruited to go to college. I've seen it. I mean, it's something that's already been happening. It's just deregulated now. I think a lot of fans are now seeing the steel curtain be kind of pulled back. People don't really know how to react to it. But I just think it's time to accept that this is what it is. The guys can get paid now. If Jalen wants to leave Alabama and go make 7 figures at Ole Miss, I don't see a problem with it. And if he goes to Ole Miss and he doesn't produce, I also don't see a problem with it because there's millions of people in America right now with high-paying jobs who don't really perform at their job. It's just what it is. It's a free market. So that's all I got to say. I'm going to hang up.
Josh,
what you guys think?
We appreciate it. Thank you. Well, and here's the thing. Your approach in recruiting doesn't change. You don't go and get a guy that's, well, let's go and recruit a bunch of 3 stars, Pat, because if we get 4 and 5 stars, everybody's going to want them after a year. It's not the way that you do it.
Well, if you develop those 3 or 4 stars, and they produce,
right,
then they're going to be the first ones out the door as well.
Well, yeah, and it is a free market. So if somebody's willing to pay, say, a Jalen Mbakwe, they want to give him $1.5 million to come and play football at Ole Miss and let him play wide receiver. Heck, let him pull a Travis Hunter. Let him play both sides of the ball if he wants to. Albeit, this is not going away. The scary thing to me is the amount of money that is now going to certain players, and it's not even the best or considered the best at their positions.
Yeah, we're not even talking about quarterbacks.
No.
We're not talking about skill position guys.
Right.
We're talking about linemen. We're talking about tight ends. Some of the numbers I heard for some DBs that didn't even sniff a preseason or a postseason award. The kind of money they're getting. Over 2,000 players are currently in the transfer portal. Last year there were 2,700 total. So already within 1 week, you've had over 2,000 players enter the transfer portal. Listen, I'm all for a free market society, and that goes for the players. But just like in the NFL, there's a free market society, but there are rules and regulations in regards to how you can sign, a signing cap, free agency period, things of that nature. I mean, when you've got quarterbacks walking off rosters as a backup quarterback in the college football playoff, because either he went and jumped into the portal or he was going to miss an opportunity, well, that's a problem. That's a problem for not only the team he currently plays for, but that's a problem for him moving forward. They need to adjust that in regards to a calendar to make it to where if a player is playing on a roster, if he wants to leave that team, that is fine. But you've got to have some type of safeguard somewhere to protect the teams that are actually bringing these kids in and giving them a roster spot.
Well, Pat B., he texted into the show on the text line 205-834-9450, and he said, what about this? What if a player every single year had to declare himself as a scholarship player or an NIL player? And somehow you're able to tie that in. Unless they do it at the national level and the government gets involved and legislation is passed, this isn't going away. And now with the revenue sharing, that's just a bigger pot of money that you're able to pay these guys.
Yeah, just think of all the money that these collectives, whether it was the Grove Collective over in Oxford, what they paid for, what Ohio State paid for their roster this year. Now all of a sudden you're going to have new money.
Right.
Now it's going to be the university is going to have anywhere between $16 and $20 million that you're going to be able to maybe pay for a football roster. I mean, that's new money.
When people make more money, a lot of people, they don't put that money back and live the same way that they did prior to getting that raise. They will spend according to how much money is coming in. Money in, money going out. I think that's what we're seeing in college football. And here's the thing, and we'll never come to this day, but if all of the schools wanted to get together and say, hey, guys, gentlemen's agreement, we are not going to pay over X amount of dollars. There's nothing that anyone could do about it if they're not willing to pay.
Yeah, well, that was back in the old days of the SEC, back in the early 2000s. That's what happened with the Albert Means case in the University of Alabama. There had always been a gentleman's agreement in the conference that you would not pay X amount of dollars over a certain amount for an offensive or a defensive lineman. Alabama went over that line. And when that happened, you had multiple schools said, okay, enough's enough. We've had enough. You guys agreed to this. And then all of a sudden you had multiple schools turn Alabama in, and then that's when the fun started, when almost every school in the SEC got investigated, and most of them ended up on probation. Because that gentleman's agreement that they always had behind closed doors, that, okay, yeah, we're going to look the other way, but until Alabama went over a certain amount of money for Albert Means, which, by the way, was money not well spent for his talent, got you in a world of trouble, and then got the whole conference in a mess. That was a big-time problem. But 30% of the kids that went into the transfer portal last year never came out. They never could find a home. So, there's a lot of kids that, yes, there's the 4- and 5-star kids that are making the money, and it's great for them. But you also got a 30% of the guys that went into that transfer portal last year are still sitting there and did not have those opportunities. And then what happens to them moving forward?
Well, and then you have cases, and Coach Bill Clark, he told us about it and was talking about it not only last week on the Bill Clark show, but yesterday when he joined us on the air, that there's some, and not all, but some of these guys, they're not even certified agents. They have no business going out and representing some of these kids, and they're making them promises that they can't fulfill. And in turn, what they're doing is basically just they're pimping them out and giving out all their information to these other schools, seeing if they'll bite. Meanwhile, they're telling kid, hey, I'm going to get you all of this, all of that. I've already negotiated this type of deal. And now we're seeing when some of these kids through the portal, they're landing on campuses. I'm not saying that it happened in one particular case with a kid here locally, but kids are getting up there and realizing, like we saw kind of at UNLV last year with a quarterback, and saying, hey, I was told this. Well, who told you that? Where did you see that in writing? Some of this stuff is not put on paper. It's all just taking somebody's word that is pretending that he has your best interest at heart, and you get up there only to realize, I mean, hell, what am I getting? I'm getting, what, cheeseburgers at a local place, all that I can eat in a year, and maybe $10,000? That's not what you told me. What am I doing here?
Yeah, and listen, you brought it up, and it's an interesting facet. It's like if you want to be an agent in the NFL, you have to be certified.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, you got to be okayed by the league office. You've got uncles and cousins and long lost dads that are now showing up on people's front porches and going, you know what? I tell you what, I can cut a deal with you. I know a guy, and that guy can know a guy, and then all of a sudden I want 16% of whatever NIL money that you're about to get from that university. That's not happening everywhere, but
No.
that is a side story that is taking place.
And you know as well as I do, these guys, they're taking pictures of current college athletes, former college athletes. They're creating websites. Somebody's going and doing that for them, and all of it's a bunch of baloney.
Of course it is. I did see this stat, and this is pretty amazing. So all the talk about Ole Miss this year, about buying the roster. Now, Ole Miss had the 7th most snaps on their football team taken by transfers. Okay? That makes sense. 76% of their roster, of the snaps taken on their football team, came from transfers. That was 7th most in college football.
But Indiana's more than them.
They are just ahead of them at 77%. SMU was number 2 in America. Did you realize that?
No, I didn't.
Texas State, 87% of their snaps taken this year was by transfers. SMU came in at number 2 with 85%. They made the college football playoff. Houston was next. Colorado. Arizona State made the college football playoff. Theirs at 79%. Indiana at 77%. So you've got 3 of the top 7 programs in college football. The majority of their snaps was taken by transfers.
Whoa. I'm just thinking as a transfer, if I'm in the portal and it comes down to SMU and Arizona State, how am I choosing that? It seems like I don't think you can go wrong with either. We know how partial you are to Tempe, though.
I am.
We'll get back to the text line, 205-834-9450. Mike Griffith, who joined us earlier, as he always does on Tuesdays, he brought up about Dabo Swinney and being from the state of Alabama, and this listener reacted and said, that was so funny when Griffith said what he did about Dabo, you guys had nothing. Like, no. Amen to the Dabo comments. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. John Mack, who is a Fighting Texas Aggie fan, says, oh, goodness. We got several here. Money talks, BS walks. Wait until all the Bammers find out they are poor in the big picture. They think it sucks now. Give it 2 to 3 years. You guys will have anarchy on your hands. They'll be signing ballads of St. Nick in the good old days. Singing.
I can promise you this. It will be the likelihood of what Brian Harsin was at Auburn, a very short tenure, if Kalen DeBoer does not have that football team in a better position next year at this time.
Well, if that does happen, I can't see Kalen DeBoer doing cheers to the winners on social media.
No, I don't
Seems
see
like
that.
he's got a little bit more class than that. This one coming in, this is so absurd. These guys are not arrogant enough. Let's pay a bunch of unproven athletes money that they don't deserve. Well, some of them, to be fair, are proven. I mean, they proved it in at least 1 year of football. But in some cases, you're absolutely right. They are proven.
I mean, a prime example, let's take Mbakwe. Whether he stays at Alabama and gets a new deal at Alabama, or he goes elsewhere and gets a better deal than what he currently has at the University of Alabama, he has a very small availability of tape playing in college football.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, his upside, based on his athleticism, based on what he did in high school, based on what professional folks look at his tape and say what his ceiling is through the roof. Yeah, you could see that as a potential somebody paying that kind of money for him. But a lot of these guys, they're going to go for a little bit of seniority, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You're going to go for guys that, has been around a program, maybe a junior or senior, because you know exactly what you have based on their talent ability. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Tony. He's next in Birmingham. Hey, Tony.
Hey, guys. Big-time Bama fan. But I am so sick and tired of people not wanting to come to the realization that we're not going back to 2015. This is a business, and the kid is making a business decision. I don't know many people in many jobs who wouldn't take $1 million+ bucks a year to go somewhere else and do that job. And let's not kid ourselves, playing college athletics, especially football, is a job. And just my last thing is that people always want to come down on the side of the players. Well, the NCAA created NIL. The NCAA created the transfer portal. The NCAA created the red shirt rules to where you can play 4 games and still get a year back. The kids are just taking advantage of the situation. And it just boggles my mind that money was never an issue until the people who were getting none of the money started getting some.
That's fair. Good call. We appreciate it, Tony. Well, and now they don't even try to hide it. Used to, you had programs that had things set up, infrastructure was in place, and there was a way to funnel money. I'd heard even is most recently an elite college football program, the standard for their signing class was averaging about $100,000 per player. Now, this is pre-NIL and all of that good stuff, when it was still done in shady, dark places in very creative ways. And some of the ways that Pat and I have heard that it's been done is not only super creative, it's brilliant. Brilliant. The way that some of this money, where it's parked, some of these shell organizations, corporations that park the money, and then how it's distributed, or was at least in the old days. Now you don't have to hide it. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be secretive. You don't have to worry about telling anybody. Go and tell the world. We just offered you $1.8 million to come and play quarterback here. See if they can beat it. That's where we are.
That's right.
God bless America.
Absolutely. More of your phone calls at the bottom of the hour. We'll go out to the Dallas-Fort Worth region of our world, and we will talk to SMU beat writer and get his thoughts on SMU as they get ready to take on the first-round opponent there in Happy Valley. More three-man front. We're live. Jocks 94.5. We've already had a wardrobe change. If you're watching on YouTube, Landrum now wearing his Christmas sweater. I'm not looking your way because I don't want to have an epileptic seizure with your flashing bulbs and whatnot.
We have different age groups up here. If anybody has issues with, I probably need to turn these off anyways. I appreciate Gringo.
Yeah, the Gringo helped you out with a battery.
Well, I had a
new
battery mishap. This morning I was slinging stuff around, throwing things in the truck. We had a little bit of a chaotic start to our day.
It was, but hey, we were on the air. We're ready to go. It was good.
Yeah, we persevered.
There are a lot of roofing companies out there. If you have the experience and true desire to take care of you like my good friends over at Abide Roofing, 205-922-7134. That's the number. Travis Lloyd, he's the guy you want to speak to. I want to recommend him and Abide 100%. He put a new roof on my home a few years back, jumped through all the hoops with the insurance company. They took care of me. Just when I thought that they were going to deny it, no problem. Abide Roofing and Travis got on my roof over 2 hours with my insurance agency, and they took care of it. It was fantastic. They used the best products, stellar communication throughout the whole process. I know they're going to take care of you because Travis took care of me. Licensed, bonded, and insured, and a true pro in the industry. Get your roof a free inspection today, and we get these little bursts of these heavy rains that come through this time of the year. Don't get that surprise when you look up and you see that you got a leak on your roof. Let Travis get on your roof and give you a free estimate. Take a look at your shingles and give you an idea of what you're looking at, whether it's an easy repair or you're looking at a full roof replacement. 922-7134. Put 205 in front of that number. That is abideroof.com.
We got time for a phone call. I think if Greg is in Russellville and still hanging on. Hey, Greg, how are you?
Hey, man, I was going to be coming down to see you today, and then I had some car problems this morning, but that's the way it goes, I reckon.
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, you know how they are. Electronics are fun.
Do you drive an electric car?
No, it's just I got an electric box in my car. It's going a little haywire, so they're trying to figure it out. They got their mind of their own, so.
Yes,
but anyway, I was looking forward to seeing you guys this afternoon. But anyway, what I was calling about, the NIL, and you probably already know how I feel about the portal and all that kind of stuff, so I'm not going to go there. I do have a lot of friends, though, that have just totally quit watching football.
Really?
They're done with it. Yeah, they're just done.
Are they just telling you that? Are they telling you that? Because it's real cool in a big group to say, hey, I'm not doing it. Everybody did it with the whole kneeling thing for the national anthem in the NFL, but they secretly watched. But you don't think that's the case?
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to get them to come watch ball games with me all year and grill out and do all the fun stuff, and they're like, well, I'm going fishing or whatever.
Well, maybe it's that Auburn fiance of yours, Greg.
Oh, she don't even care. She likes watching college football. She's just done with Auburn.
Okay,
anyway,
understandable.
She's still not all up in all this transfer portal either. She says, well, why don't you get some young guys and teach them how to play football? But anyway, what I called about was the bowls. And I'll be a little bit different on the bowls. I still look forward to the bowls, because you get to this time of year and, and you realize college football is going to be coming to an end. And but I like watching these games, and I like watching these games with these players and teams. That's what they're playing for. They're not going to be in the playoff. Most of them don't ever even have a chance. But I enjoy watching some of those games.
Are you going to watch the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl tonight?
I sure am. I watch every one of them unless I'm off doing something else. But, I don't watch the first two last Saturday.
Yeah, we got one tonight. We got two tomorrow night.
Wonder who the highest paid player in that game tonight is.
Who?
No, I don't know. I'm just wondering.
Oh, I don't know. Well, see, that's why I like watching them, because a lot of they've been getting a little bit of NIL money, but a lot of them's out there just playing, kind of like Army and Navy. They're out there playing because they love the football. And some of the teams, like Alabama, keeps losing players. They're going to need 15 extra practices, to train up some of these guys that ain't getting all the money.
Well, they really got a problem with only 4 wide receivers right now.
That's an issue.
Well, I could go out there. I'm 300 pounds, but I'll go out there and try.
You got any eligibility left, Greg?
Well, yeah, I got plenty of college. I just played high school. I wasn't good enough to get in college.
All right.
Man, but anyway, I still like watching the bowl games. I know Alabama and Michigan both may not have the same kind of teams, but I still watch it. And right now I may be going. I think I got some tickets, free tickets.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
And I'm all about, I used to live in Tampa. I'm all about the beach and all that. Even the 300 pounds, they try to get me back in the water so I don't die. But anyway, I just wanted to say I still enjoy watching the games. It may not mean as much as they used to, but I'm proud for those kids that get out there that beat their brains out every week practicing and working out and don't have no chance for the playoffs, and they still get out there and have fun.
Well, you're right, Greg. But just remember this. Those games, they still mean a lot to Vegas and a lot to people like Pat.
Yep, Memphis is a 4.5-point favorite tonight. Just FYI.
And the universities are still getting some money, so it ain't like they go in for free. So, but anyway, hey, I enjoyed talking to y'all, and sorry
Thanks,
I didn't get
Greg.
to make it today.
That's okay. Hey,
Greg,
you and your
thank
family
you,
have a
man.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Y'all too.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it very much.
I'm cussing his car. I wish he would come in. What an awesome guy.
Memphis 10-2 on the year, taking on West Virginia tonight, 6-6. And it's only a 4.5-point spread.
At least West Virginia can field a team, though, right?
That's correct.
Unlike another team in the state.
How about this number? This is crazy. So, Dan Mullen's contract came out. He's making $3.5 million on a 5-year deal at UNLV.
Right.
Here's the kicker. The salary that he's going to make at UNLV is going to double the amount that they paid Barry Odom.
Makes sense, though.
Barry Odom made 1.75, and so now Dan Mullen is going to double the amount that the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference, Jay Norvell, makes, which is $1.8 million. Mullen will earn $1 million more than the highest paid American head coach, which is South Florida's Alex Golich and UTSA's Jeff Traylor.
What are those guys making? What?
Right at $2 million.
$2 million. Monken's
About
making
2.2.
and they don't.
something like
I don't know
that.
if they published that, but Monken's deal's around $2 million at Army.
He will also out-earn Georgia Tech's Brent Key,
Whoa.
UCLA's Deshaun Foster, Arizona's Brent Brennan, and Vanderbilt's Clark Lee.
More experience, and if you're UNLV, think about it. Barry Odom did all the hard work. Now Dan Mullen just come in and try not to screw it up, right?
I mean, the amazing thing about UNLV, because what did we talk about at the beginning of the year was about their quarterback not getting paid. And I saw where I think he was in the portal, and I think he's visiting Liberty.
There's
So I
you
guess-
talk about a school with a lot of money.
Well, I was about to say,
What is Liberty doing in the portal?
you think maybe Liberty's guaranteeing payment?
Is Liberty loaning people money?
They've got like a national bank or something?
Yeah. Just 8% interest. How much money you need? Those guys print it there. UNLV, though, with Dan Mullen, that's gonna be really fascinating to watch. Because there's the lights, there's the glamour. Now that kids know that UNLV can win, I don't know how much they're willing to pay through the portal for particular guys. But I remember when Jerry Tarkanian had it going with the basketball team back in the 90s.
Paid them in chips. Paid them in chips.
And I played a
Casino
lot of
chips.
basketball, and I dreamed of one day playing at UNLV for that program.
Mm-hmm. And I did see where Dan Mullen got his first transfer portal guy, running back from Utah.
Boy, that's going to be a lot different. Salt Lake to Vegas. Whoa.
Just a little bit.
What is that? I've never seen that before.
Just a little bit. All right, when we come back, we'll preview SMU, the team that got in over Alabama, as Rhett Lashley's team, they get ready for their first round playoff game in Happy Valley, taking on Penn State. That's next on Three Man Front. It's 12:34, Jocks 94.5 on this Taco Tuesday. We're live at Social Taco. Come by and see us. We're here until 2 o'clock. A place that knows tacos very, very well.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they do it very well.
I like their brisket out that way as well.
That's right. Let's go to the great state of Texas. Jacob Richman joins us now, college sports reporter for Lone Star Live. He joins us now, talking a little SMU Mustangs. And, Jacob, happy holiday season to you. Hope things are going well in the Metroplex.
Thanks, guys. You as well. It's an exciting week here in Dallas. I think people around the hilltop know how big this matchup could be for SMU, so I think people are getting pretty hyped up for it.
Jacob, let me start before we get into this matchup in the first round of the playoff. I want to go back to the, just the thought process going into the ACC championship game. We heard what the CFP committee, Ward Manuel, said the Tuesday before it went into the championship game against Clemson. But how confident was the people around the football program that no matter what took place there in Charlotte, that SMU was in a really good spot, that they were going to be one of the teams in the CFP if they were to have lost?
Yeah, I think as far as people around the program, I think there was some optimism that, they had really earned, their spot at that point going 11-1 in the regular season. And the coaches and players at SMU certainly felt that they had as well. But they would be, they were pretty specific with us that they were not certain that it was going to go their way. I think they were all waiting to see that, Mustang logo pop up. So when they went into that game, winning was really important to them. They were saying they don't want to leave this in the hands of the CFP committee, just in case that they, decided to go with Alabama over them. So it was definitely not a easy week. They weren't, even though they maybe felt that they could play a little freer because they had, such a strong resume going in, there was definitely no certainty they were making it.
With Dallas in the Metroplex being such a pro-driven sports city, I am curious how many folks that normally wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to college football are gravitating to what Rhett Lashley and the Mustangs have done this season.
Yeah, so I'll say, I've lived in Dallas almost my entire life. I went to school out in Maryland, but other than that, I've lived in Dallas. And when I was growing up, SMU was not, to be honest, they were an afterthought. They were not, Saturdays weren't for going to watch SMU. They were, for watching the other teams, Texas Tech, even Oklahoma, some people in this far north Dallas area. But over these past couple seasons, I think with the investment that Rhett Lashley and his staff have put into this area, recruiting this area and trying to put on a good product, this season's starting to, I think, kind of segue this new era for SMU in, where now you have, the local TV broadcast is leading off with SMU and what they're doing, and they're selling out Ford Stadium, which was never a certainty for them. So it's really changed, I think, how people are viewing college football, and particularly SMU in the area, where, as you said, it's certainly still a pro city, but with how the Cowboys have been playing lately, I think people are looking for a little bit more excitement in their football.
All right, so there's been so much talk about the Southern football teams heading north to play these first-round games. I saw Rhett Lashley talking the other morning. I think it was a pretty cold morning one day there in the Metroplex, and he was talking about it was no big deal, team out there practicing. Is this just one of these stories that the northern media just likes to overdo, thinking that these southern guys can't put on a couple extra layers of clothing and go play football in Happy Valley?
Yeah, you ask the guys, they're not concerned about it. They say, it'll be a slight adjustment, but I think they're helped out by the fact that it's going to be a noon kick. So, the sun's going to be out the entire time. It's, it'll still be chilly, of course, but I don't think it'll be nearly as difficult as maybe a night game would have been. They've tried simulating stuff, in their indoor facility, really making it cold in there. We talked to Rhett Lashley this morning, and he was actually pretty upset that it's actually a pretty nice day today in Dallas. We had, 50s, high 50s weather. It wasn't too chilly, so he was like, it was a perfect day, and they maybe wanted something a little tougher, but the guys say that at this point in the season, it's not going to bother them too much. They're going to go in there, and it'll only affect them if they kind of let it. I think as much as it's maybe unusual for them, once you get in the heat of the game, I think they proved a couple weeks back with Clemson. That was a pretty cold game in Charlotte. I think it ended up being in the evening in the low 30s, and that was when they played their best football. So I don't think they're too concerned about it, but if we start to see some issues early on and dropping passes and stuff, maybe it does play a part, but they're certainly not going to say that it does at this point.
Jacob, you include in your story there at Lone Star Live that Rhett Lashley, when SMU scores under 30 points, they're 3-9 in his time there. Penn State, meanwhile, they've allowed only 30 points or more than 30 points twice this season. Is that the roadmap for an SMU upset in Happy Valley, or do you think that maybe they can go about it in a different way?
I think that's probably, where you look, if you're looking back at the game and saying this is how it would have laid out perfectly for SMU, I think it is making sure that they're getting the points on the board. And this is nothing to say that their defense isn't really strong, because I think their defense is probably the best unit they have. I think it's more about the consistency of the offense. When they're scoring under that 30 points, a lot of the time it's because the offense is turning the ball over. It's because they're not taking advantage of their opportunities in the red zone. So I think when you look at a way it would work out for them, you're looking at them hitting that 30 number. And obviously it's not a guarantee. They just lost to Clemson, scoring over 30 points, but they also gave up those turnovers early on, and it forced the offense to really, really have to step up in the second half. If SMU is consistent and they're scoring early on, even if they don't put up the 30 necessarily, as long as they're not giving Penn State any of those extra possessions, I think that's the roadmap for them.
Well, Jacob, in regards to this football game, and Landrum just pointed out, obviously, the defensive prowess of what Penn State does, the offensive side of things for the Mustangs. How do you see this one kind of shaping out in regards to this being a higher scoring game, SMU getting the win and going on and playing Boise? How do you see this one ending up on Saturday?
Yeah, it's tough. It's one of those kind of best on best, I feel like. And to be honest, SMU hasn't played a defense like this before. They've played some solid defenses. I think they've done well with some individual players. Like over at Boston College, it's a very solid defense this year. But Penn State's, they really are just a different beast. And it all obviously, I think, starts at Abdul Carter. Rhett Lashley said today that he is on film the best defensive player that SMU's faced since he's been head coach there. They're going to be looking at him and trying to find a way to keep him out of the backfield, even though Kevin Jennings is an excellent scrambler and has avoided some serious pressure. Abdul Carter does not seem like the kind of guy who's going to be missing a tackle. If he's there and he's near Kevin Jennings, he's going to get him on the ground. So I think the big piece is going to be how much time they're able to give Kevin in the pocket, how much they're going to be able to let him make those plays. That was when you looked at the rougher weeks for SMU early on in the season, it's because their quarterbacks, be it Kevin Jennings or Preston Stone, they were constantly under fire. They weren't having enough time to go make a play. You looked at, especially in that BYU game. I think Penn State's the kind of team that could do that to them, and it's going to be up, I think, particularly to that SMU offensive line to make sure that they've got time to make their plays.
If SMU is able to pull off the upset in Happy Valley, this would be the biggest win in SMU football history since or ever?
I probably would say ever. This is one of these things that you're looking at and you're like, man, every win they get at this point does feel like, the biggest that it could be for them. And I'll be honest, I'm a little on the younger side, so I was not around back in the 80s when they won their national championship. But I think this would definitively be the best win that they ever had. I think it would surpass their win over Pitt in the Cotton Bowl in '83. That was one that was talked about a lot this season because they played Pitt again in the regular season. I really do think that this would be bigger. This is a real chance for them to announce that they're back on the national stage if they hadn't already with the ACC championship appearance.
Well, this one should be a really good one. First round as SMU heads up to Happy Valley taking on Penn State in the first round of the college football playoff. The winner will get Boise. Jacob, happy holidays to you and your family. Safe travels up to the wonderful state of Pennsylvania. And who knows, we might be talking to you again for round 2.
Thanks so much, you guys. Have a happy holidays.
Thank you. That is Jacob Richman joining us on the Buyer's Ride Hotline, covers the SMU Mustangs.
Well, speaking of the holidays, Merry Christmas from our friends at Dobbs Ford on Parkway East in Birmingham, the Goshen family. They have got the showroom decorated, ready for you to come in and look at Alabama's largest showroom selection. The entire staff, just wonderful folks. Whether you're looking at the F-150, maybe a Dobbs Ford Edition F-150, the Mustangs, the Broncos and the Bronco Sports, the Explorers, you're going to get top dollar for your trade. Total transparency throughout the entire process, and they'll beat any competitor's price. It's really simple. You go to DobbsFordBirmingham.com, peruse the selection, make your way out there to Parkway East in Birmingham, and check it out there. Meet all those great folks. And, heck, even for the holidays, they gift wrap. They'll put a bow on it. They will deliver it wherever you need it delivered. DobbsFordBirmingham.com. Make sure you tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
And 15 minutes from now, we're going to get the Irish side of things as they get ready to take on a fellow Indiana program, the Hoosiers.
Tim O'Malley?
Tim O'Malley. Just a perfect name.
It's one of your brothers.
That covers the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. We will talk to him at 1 o'clock, get a preview of that. More from Social Taco. This is Jocks 94.5. It's 12:49, Jocks 94.5 on this very festive Taco Tuesday. Come by and see us. We'll be here until 2 o'clock, and then the festivities will continue on after 2 o'clock.
Yes.
Paul Feinbaum will be on the air. We will not be on the air, but we will stay here and hopefully have a beverage or two and continue to kibitz with some of our
little
friends
mistletoe.
here.
Oh.
looking around.
We have many pinatas here.
I don't see any.
We'll find some mistletoe.
Yep.
Well, no one does happy hour like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails, an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits, and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out their adventurous drink menu that is second to none. And don't forget about their 29-degree man-sized drafts. That is at Twin Peaks in Hoover.
Text line is open, 205-834-9450. Best way to interact with us, unless you're here in person at Social Taco. Van from Ohio. Appreciate you listening, Van, and watching there on Jocks TV. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas, and to all my brothers, see you soon. Looking forward to spending the new year with y'all. Merry Christmas. Go Buckeyes. Thank you, Van. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Van.
Ken text, Arch Manning going to Michigan.
Well, Michigan's already got a high-profile, high-dollar quarterback.
Well, what's he going to do without another high-dollar quarterback on his roster if Quinn Ewers is going somewhere, right? This one comes in. One of the reasons Alabama has lost 5-star wide receiver recruits is because they know Milroe cannot pass other than slinging the ball downfield. He is not an overall good QB. You agree with that, Pat?
From a passing perspective or just overall?
Overall,
QB?
he's been really, really effective in his career.
Yes.
But if we're talking about, I don't know, mechanics, fundamentals, how sound he is in that, certainly wouldn't put him up there at the top, but I'm not a quarterback coach. He's got results. He's an athlete. By his time, he's been able to create, make plays. But maybe Alabama fans are ready for somebody like a Ty Simpson. How much better do we believe are effective? And it's a different style, but
yeah.
Ty Simpson's going to be running that offense.
Well, it's interesting because when Kalen DeBoer came to Alabama, the first thing they would say, well, Jalen Milroe, are you going to play to his strengths, or are you going to make Jalen Milroe play to the type of offense that you had getting to the national championship game? Because that's not the same offense that you saw in Seattle.
No.
But you had different personnel in Tuscaloosa. That was already there, and you already had some kids that obviously you brought in a couple, obviously from the transfer portal, Brailsford, offensive line, Bernard, obviously a big get on the wide receiver point of things. But I think a lot of people are going to be holding their breath a little bit to see how this offense moves forward with a Ty Simpson and what kind of wide receiver core you're going to have around him.
This one reads, with all the losses in the portal for Bama, should it be a concern that Kalen isn't bringing in guys right away like you see Auburn is doing?
That's what we asked Mike. Right now it just appears that it's kind of rudderless right now in Tuscaloosa in regards to their plan.
It's not a whole lot of buzz about guys coming in.
Yeah, there's none. And so if you're an Alabama fan, you're scratching your head because you could say what you want to about the product on the field for Auburn the last 2 years, but you got to give Hugh Freeze major kudos because he and his staff, they had a plan to hit the ground running as soon as that portal opened up, and they've continued to sign a couple guys this morning out of the transfer portal. So, Auburn's had a plan, and they have executed that plan. Now, the proof will be in the pudding on the field.
Sure.
But from a transfer portal standpoint, I think Auburn has done a really, really good job.
Safety, DB, you had to address those issues.
Offensive line.
All-American offensive tackle. I would like to see what his Xavier Chaplin from Virginia Tech, what his NIL deal is. Today, you get Mason Murphy, former USC offensive lineman. He decides he's coming to Auburn. Now, he was a 3-star out of high school, and they said he's a better run blocker, according to this breakdown that On3 did, than maybe a pass blocker. But still, that was an area that you were deficient, and you were trying to cross-train guys. These are long and lean guys. You got 6'7", I forget the wingspan of the Chaplin kid, but it's crazy. I think, 87 inches, something like that. Something wild. And then you got another kid in Mason Murphy who's more of a leaner guy, but he's still over 300 pounds, and he's 6'6". So you got some size there. You address the need at safety. DB. You get a kid out of Miami of Ohio. Looks like a really good prospect. The kid that they were able to land out of Atlanta and Georgia Tech, he's coming in, who, by the way, was the roommate of Eric Singleton Jr., the highest-rated prospect right now in the transfer portal, or was, at least by On3. And then you get a punter, of course, quarterback, running back with good size. You're right. They did have a plan. And
a couple of quarterbacks.
That's right. Ashton Daniels, getting that kid. So now, and he sounded like, in just listening to his comments, wanted to be a mentor. Obviously, it seems like he wanted to be closer to home.
Yeah.
Where he's originally from Buford, Georgia, but also another guy that has played meaningful snaps, has played big-time college football, has started games, has been effective at times to be your QB too. So, yeah, and I guess you can make the point that Hugh Freeze, he's had to do it in the first, couple of cycles that they've had. But now it seems like they're being able to pick and choose as opposed to the numbers and getting guys, a lot of guys like from the Coastal Carolinas, the App States, the Arkansas States. Not that those guys aren't still out there, but you're not having to go and get as many.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest question mark for Alabama fans is, does Kalen DeBoer have a plan? And if he does have a plan, they would love to not see a blueprint of it, but they would like to see a little bit of evidence of maybe some guys that have made their way to Tuscaloosa, and they left Tuscaloosa, and they did not consummate the deal.
When you see names, Mbakwe being the latest, but Justice Haynes, even the three wide receivers, and how that's going to deplete your depth, whether it was Caleb Odom and you thought that eventually he was going to be a starter in that offense, Kobe Prentice, Kenyon Drake. Not Kenyon Drake. Oh, my gosh. Goodness. Heavens.
Law.
Yes. It's been a while for.
I know who you meant.
Yeah, Drake. It's been a minute on him. But, yeah, Law, who knows? And the grass is not always greener. That's JoJo Earl. How many others can we name? But it's worked out for some guys. And at the end of the day,
just ask any tight end that's left Tuscaloosa.
You got somebody responsible managing your money. In the end, you got a pretty good nest egg. What do you think Jalen Milroe's worth right now?
Ooh.
$10, $12 million?
Probably.
Never has to play in the NFL. Just be smart with your money. We'll check in South Bend. Tim O'Malley, Irish Illustrated. Pat's brother from another mother. Coming up next, three-man front live from Social Taco in Homewood.
It is 1 o'clock, the fourth hour of Three Man Front. We're live at Social Taco. Come join us here on the Taco Terrace.